Hello, everybody. Vince Dowd coming to you today live from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And this is a StreamYard broadcast. And I have a very special guest that will be joining us today, which is Liam Gillen, a very good friend of mine. And I'm going to interview Liam because I want to have him share with you some of the great things he's learned that have helped me and many others to actually tap into mindfulness. And so I suggest you do stick around. And before I bring him in, I want to just really quickly let you know that he's going to help you to really learn to center yourself, to be present, especially in these times, which are very challenging with the lockdown and with a lot of fear going on. So it's really important to be present. So I'm going to bring him in just a moment. Grab a notepad and pen, and we'll get going. Wonderful. So I want to welcome Mr. Liam Gillen. Hello, Liam. How are you doing?
I'm great, Vince. Thanks. I really appreciate you having me on your show. Thank you.
You bet. You bet. Now, Liam, where are you right now in the world?
I am in Amelia Island, which is just north of Jacksonville.
Okay.
And been living here for the last couple of years.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So today we're going to have people tuning in, obviously, and some of the people will be coming on probably as a replay. By the way, if you are coming on as a replay, I would ask you to type in on the comments #AuthenticElevation, and that way we can interact with you if you have any questions and so forth, and go there that way, and that way we can notice it. That's something we can do, Liam, to follow up if you want to start hashtagging.
Great.
Also, if you're coming on live, I don't know, this is StreamYard, and it's the first time I've really used it. I'm not sure if I can see your comments. I'm going to open my comments just in case, though. And, it looks like the comments do come in. So if you're on Facebook, I will be able to see the comments, and I'll show you what it looks like. So I can actually preview your comment. There it is. So Zach says the split screen looks good. So we understand now. I can look at your comments. I love this. Don't you, Liam?
Yeah, it's very good. I'm very impressed, Vince.
Me too. Feel like a news channel right now.
Yeah, I know I'm technically challenged, so this is very, very impressive.
Yes, and it's very easy, so I can't wait to work with this more. All right, well, let's start off with this, Liam. What exactly do you do?
Well, I teach mindfulness, meditation, how to presence. I work with groups and do workshops, retreats. I teach at a yoga institute, the Amrit Yoga Institute, certifications in meditation. And then I work one-on-one with clients on coaching and what we call yoga therapy, which is using the philosophy behind yogic techniques to release stress and anxiety in the body and mind so that you can be more present and fully enjoy your life.
That's awesome. And I've had the wonderful experience of many of those modalities, not only by being with you at the Amrit Institute, but also just the experiences from other yogis up there and learning how energy works in our body and so forth. So that's wonderful. Now, before we get into that, I wanted to take people on a journey of kind of how we met, and then really maybe go into your story so they can get to know you a little bit better.
Sure.
So do you remember when we met?
I do. You lived on the opposite side of the road from me. We were neighbors.
Yeah, I think if I remember right, I was in my maybe early 30s. And I was doing well financially, and I moved into this neighborhood, a gated golf course community. And I think I was the only single person in the neighborhood. And
possibly.
And I think our neighbor, Alan, came over and said, just so you know, this is a very family-oriented environment, and there's kids. I think he's afraid I was going to be throwing these crazy parties.
Which you did.
And he was ending up over there quite a bit. So So those were fun times. And so what did you do, Liam, prior to this? When I met you, I think it was 2003 in Orlando.
Yeah, at that time, I was in the real estate business and doing very well. We were just entering the boom of the real estate market. And I had moved back from living in the Caribbean for about 5 years, and was adjusting to a very comfortable lifestyle in Orlando when the real estate crash happened, and that put us all off on a different direction.
Yes.
And that, so I ended up moving from that point into reevaluating my life yet again. And that's what led me into yoga and meditation and putting me back on, focused on a spiritual path rather than seeking meaning and purpose through money. And although I still enjoy money and I still want money, it's not that I don't want it. It's just, it's not the be all and end all of what I do every day.
Yeah, and you were living a decent lifestyle. I mean, you had a lot of properties, you had a nice house, so you were not hurting. And financially, you were. What did you say you were doing? You'd done the casino.
I had a real estate company and a title company and a property management company. We were buying and renovating. We did a lot. We were, I'd say, within 3 years, we were one of the top companies in Orlando doing what we were doing. So we rose very quickly. I ended up, I think, at one point with 17 properties.
Wow.
And like yourself, I was enjoying the fruit of success. You were doing very well at the time too.
Yeah.
So it was a heady time, and I wasn't being very conscious of what was going on around me, very absorbed in the day-to-day activities of running a business and making money, and kind of oblivious to life passing by as quickly as it does.
And so would you say you were fulfilled at the time, even though on the outside everything looked really great and you had nice things and all the trappings of success? Did you feel inside yourself that you were fulfilled?
No, I think it's interesting because most of my life I traveled all around the world. I grew up in Ireland and moved to England and to Cyprus and Holland and Malaysia and the US. And so there were lots of places, if you were to look at me from the outside, where you would say, oh yeah, this guy's got a pretty cool lifestyle. So I always was always chasing excitement and adventure as a way of distracting myself from the internal disharmony that I felt internally. And I felt that from a very young age. And there was many times at the age of 14, 15, I went off to study for the priesthood. I didn't last. And then in my late 30s, I went to Bible college because I again thought I wanted to reorient my life. And it was a question of, well, there was lots of reasons why I didn't move deeper and deeper into that. But I think each time was trying to find something outside of myself to make me feel better inside. It wasn't until I stopped chasing everything outside and started doing the internal work. They talk about the longest journey is from the head to the heart.
True. Yeah.
And like you, as I know, my heart got shut down very, very young. And so the idea of seeking internally was difficult. It wasn't really available. It was easier to have a drink or go to a party or go buy something or go play golf or go whatever it was to distract me rather than look at what was happening in my mind, what was driving me, driven by 100 forms of fear. Was I willing to examine that and acknowledge what was going on internally and see what I could change? And the last great change of direction was when I got involved in the institute, the Yoga Institute. I had broken my leg living in Orlando, and a friend of mine sent me a CD with a meditation on it, and I started listening to it. And as I recovered, I realized that just by practicing this meditation that I felt very different internally. And so I was driven to find out more. And that's when I went to the Institute and started the studying process. And I ended up moving there and working there. And I was the CEO for a couple of years. And my intention was to integrate as much as possible, but also to bring business acumen into an ashram environment.
Mm.
And it was an interesting time. It was a very interesting time.
I don't know if you remember this, but as I lived across the street from you, I used to do some yoga, some asana, and I think your wife was doing a little bit of it at the time. And you were like, "What are you doing?" I don't know if you remember that, but it was like, because I was just into the movements after being in the martial arts for so many years.
Yes.
The last pose that I did in yoga is what sold me on it, which is shavasana.
Right.
And, for me with a noisy mind to be able to work through the energy, lay down, and then to have my mind slow down was so powerful of me to have this stillness and this rest that I really didn't experience. And that's what really I loved about yoga. And little did I know that meeting you and then having my whole life fall out from under me with the financial crisis of 2007. And the funny thing is, we had hung out for several years and got to know you and your family. And then we all went our separate ways. And the next thing I heard was that Liam joined a cult. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, he's living up in a cult in the forest. And I don't think Liam's the type to join a cult. This intrigued me. So I think I reached out to you. We got in contact. And then you kind of told me it was a yoga institute, which is definitely different. If people don't know yoga or ashrams, they might consider it a cult because you wear fluffy clothes. I don't know. But
some people do. I think that's optional, the fluffy clothes.
Yeah, I didn't do that. But the funny thing is, I remember you were asking me, because as I lost everything, I was feeling like the world crashed and that God was punishing me. And of course, I was religious like you growing up, and I realized religion itself was also a distraction for me of finding out who I am on the inside, because it was external teachings and bias and scripture that is not inside of me. It was outside of me. And that served as a distraction. So when you kept asking me, you said, well, listen, you're broke. Why don't you just come up here? And I remember you said you could sit at the feet of a living master in yoga and learn and have room and board covered for exchanging work called seva. And I was like, yeah, sounds weird to me. I don't know if I'm interested. Do you remember that? Like I do.
Yeah, I do. I mean, and it does seem very odd. I mean, I remember the first time I went there, I was very uncomfortable with the whole environment. And but the Gurudev, one of his initial comments, which I thought was quite brilliant, was, "What do you think of the wrapping?" Do you remember that?
Yes.
He would say that. Don't throw away the gift because of the wrapping. And so that made me realize how closed I was to so many things that I judged as outside of the pale. They wasn't appropriate. It didn't fit with what I was used to. And it challenged me to be open to look beyond the book cover. And, people would look at me and say, "Oh, you're so chilled." But inside my mind would be going like, "Ooh," And I'd go, "Yeah, if only you knew." So what's evolved from all of that is the focus on what is the point? What is the point of all this? Because everything is so fleeting and everything moves so fast. When you're in your 20s and 30s, life seems eternal. You're indestructible. And as you age, you're forced into realizing that how valuable your time is. And you can get caught up in going, well, I wish I'd done so much different. But the practice is to be aware of what's happening right now and how can I get the most out of right now. Our tendency is to be caught in the past, regrets, or caught in the future, the fear of what might show up, or we're really good at planning the wreckage of the future.
Yeah.
We're really good at that. And the media helps us, it's kind of built around scaring the crap out of us on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's become hard to be at peace despite what's going on. And when we get to the point where we kind of give up trying to make peace with the world, we can turn to making peace with ourselves. And when we make peace with ourselves, then we bring that internal groundedness into our experience of the world, and that changes everything. Wayne Dyer said one time, which I loved, when you change the way you see the world you see changes.
Awesome.
Isn't that awesome? And it's such a simple, profound statement that if I change the way I'm seeing everything, what I'm seeing changes. I don't have to change it. My perception of it will change. It's like the glass half empty, half full. Am I, woe is me? Look at what's going on with the coronavirus. I'm out of work. I'm not making any money. The world's falling apart. We're in a depression. My God, we're all going to starve. I mean, I could really go off the deep end with that. And it's not that I don't. We have our moments where, the thing about thoughts is you can't stop thoughts from entering your head. It's impossible, because thoughts are just a stream of consciousness that's happening all the time. We wake up thinking, we go to sleep thinking. So it's not a question of trying to stop our thoughts. It's a question of whether we can, how involved or engaged are we in the thinking? And it's when we get engaged and we just get taken off by the thought into another realm that we lose awareness of what's going on around us. Well, now we're living in our mind as opposed to living in our bodies and in our external experience of the moment. So it's not to stop the thoughts, it's to interrupt the ones that don't serve us.
Yeah. So, it's good on that. I was watching, sorry to cut you off. Eckhart Tolle in his book, The Power of Now, I believe, and also just a recent video talked about how he was sitting on the park bench and he would notice a dog walking by, and it was like a thought, because if a dog walks by, you can get up and chase the dog and follow the dog and have it lead you, who knows where it's going, or you can just notice the dog walked by.
Yeah.
So thoughts come in, and this is the challenge, because my brain's very much active like a hurricane. And at the ashram was an amazing thing for me to learn to slow that down. And still, like you say, I get caught up easy, especially coming out of the forest into this life of constant distraction and agitation to follow dogs. And I end up doing that because I easily can do that. And it's so peaceful when you don't follow the dog and you watch the dog go by and you just sit in the breath and you start your day in meditation or mindfulness and you allow the world to be as it is without making it a different way. And it's not easy. It's not easy to do. But so continue with that, with the mindfulness. What does it mean? Like these people watching, maybe some of them have never experienced mindfulness or understand what it is. So you're talking about the thoughts and attaching, and especially today with all the things going on. Can you give us a strategy, technique?
Sure. Well, yes, we can do a technique. And I think what we're looking at doing is, we talked about interrupting the thoughts that don't serve us. So there's thoughts that create fear, and fear is a negative impact in the body. And if we can interrupt the thoughts that create fear, we can stop that chemical reaction in the body and bring us back to balance, bring us back to peace, bring us back to homeostasis. Mm-hmm. So an example of that, so let's do a little exercise right now if you want. We can just, if you want to just close your eyes and if you can plant your feet on the floor and then just rest your hands wherever. And the idea of closing your eyes is you greatly reduce the input into the body, into the mind. Just by closing your eyes, it automatically moves you into an alpha brainwave state. And we're just going to take a minute or two. So regardless of what the mind is saying, I want you to just connect with your breath. Just be aware of your breath, your chest rising and falling, or your belly moving. And then we'll just scan your body and see if you can release any holding anywhere, on the shoulders or the neck or the hands or the feet. And then just slowly deepen the inhalation and the exhalation. You don't need to do a lot of work. You're just gradually allowing it to expand. And do that 4 times. And then just slowly open your eyes again. And so that was like 60, 90 seconds. And what we did was we brought our attention to the breath, and that interrupts the thinking. And as you interrupt the thinking and bring your attention to the breath, all the chemistry in the body changes. You start releasing all these feel-good chemicals, serotonin, melatonin, oxytocin, and then the body starts to relax. And as the body relaxes, it brings the mind down with it. And now we're in alpha brainwave, low beta brainwave. So we have this access to a much broader aspect of our mind, our brain, because when we're in fear, the access to the brain is restricted. So we tend to operate habitually. And when we are relaxed, we have access to the brain, which gives us intuition, wisdom. When you relax, and then all of a sudden an answer will come to you for something that you wanted a solution to.
It's amazing too, just how quickly the body moves into a state of relaxation and peace and stillness just from 4 breaths.
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly. So the key here is the idea of mindfulness or meditation is not a one-time thing. We tend to want to drive it. I'm going to do 2 hours of meditation a day. I got to be extreme in everything I do. Yeah. But if in reality, every hour I took a minute or a minute and a half and took 4 or 5 breaths consciously, then I would start giving the body the indication that it's safe and that I can operate in a more safe mode. And when I do that, then I start becoming aware of, well, look at how really it's so pretty outside, or the temperature, or, how good you look, Vince. You look so healthy. You've obviously been working out today. Have you been working out already?
So it's almost like what you're saying is when we're operating in this fight or flight sympathetic nervous system, where it's almost like we have blinders on.
Yes.
The environment around us. And so as life shows up, we're missing it. But when we move back into our breath, into our present body, it like opens the parasympathetic and it removes the blinders, and we start to see all the amazing things that life offers that are being given to us that we're blocking because we're in this fight or flight mode. Is that kind of a metaphor?
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful summation of it. So I've had this little card on my desk for a couple of years. And it says, miracles are happening around us all the time. Only those who have developed an attitude of gratitude notice them. So an attitude of gratitude can only exist when we're at peace inside. If I'm in fear, I'm not grateful. I'm trying to survive.
Yeah.
I need to get food. I need to get shelter. I need to get money. I need to get security. I need to get friendships. I'm constantly striving. When I'm in a state of peace, I'm not worried about where things are coming from. Right now, in this moment, I'm feeling okay. There are things that I would sure could be different, but they're not. And in this moment, I'm okay. And in this moment, then I have access to being grateful for the fact that I'm healthy, that we're here on your TV channel, and that we're talking about how our lives have transformed over the years, almost accidentally.
Yeah.
It's we got introduced to something by somebody else, and then it's the practice over a period of time. I wish to God it was flip a switch and everything changed, but it seems that it's walking down the path. You know that saying, chop wood, carry water.
Mm-hmm.
It's the mundane practice of simple things. So the direction of a ship, you change the direction of a ship half a degree and you don't notice the change. But a month later, it's in a whole different trajectory. So and then the next thing is when we tend to set ourselves unrealistic expectations, and then when we don't meet them, we beat ourselves up. We are our worst enemies.
Yep.
And so if we can allow ourselves to be okay with whatever, I'm going to practice meditation 5 times today for 2 minutes at a time. And I don't do it, at the end of the day, I go, screw that. That doesn't work. I'm not doing that anymore. And I move away from it.
Yeah.
Instead of going, that didn't work today. Let's try tomorrow.
Yeah.
Not by judging ourselves. By judging ourselves, we're constantly bringing ourselves down. We're constantly wounding our heart. And we are the ones that need to be building up our heart and our strength. That's called self-love. Self-love is not, look how pretty I am.
Yeah, yeah.
Self-love is not being mean to ourselves.
Yeah.
Accepting ourselves as we are and moving from this point. I can't be okay when I get here. I have to be okay here and bring being okay with me all along the way.
Awesome. Real quick, do you mind if would you be open to any questions if anybody has any?
Sure.
So if you have a question for Liam or something, maybe for me, either one, just feel free to type it in and we'll address those. Also, and I can see your questions, which is wonderful. Also, if you'll share the biggest takeaway you've had so far from Liam's conversation, if you've learned something or had a little impact or aha moment, please do share that. That would be wonderful. And we always encourage you to share the video if you find it inspiring and impactful that will help other people. So what you were saying, Liam, too, which I think is powerful, is, if you grew up in an environment where you weren't praised as a kid and you were beat up a lot verbally, like I was, maybe you were, and so many people were, it's not normal or healthy, or I should say in our mind, it doesn't seem okay to praise ourselves. And I think that's really a powerful thing that self-love comes in. Instead of beating myself up and allowing myself to be okay with the shadow side and knowing that I'm going to fall down on my face and make mistakes, but that's human. And it's okay, because we talk about intention in yoga, which is different than a goal. And as long as you're moving in the direction of expansion versus hitting specific, it's nice to hit specific goals.
Sure.
Once you hit the goal, it moves. There's another one. So you're never really there. But when you're expanding, you're there because you're always expanding into the direction of your intention.
Very good.
That's the key, the praise. So I love that you talked about that.
I grew up with humor with sarcasm. The more cutting, the better. Which is, at the time, I thought that was, that was normal. But in reality, it's demeaning. It's demeaning to the spirit, and it undermines our self-esteem. So, you don't know that. If you've spent 20 years having your self-esteem shot to hell, then that's not going to turn around overnight. And it's not a question of being able to undo the past. The past is the past, as I was told quite recently. It's just a question of not dwelling on it, because what we give attention to grows in our awareness and gets bigger. So instead of giving it attention, we move our attention to where we want to put it, which is on building self-esteem, esteemable acts. Being nice, being kind, keeping my mouth shut if I don't have anything nice to say. I don't have to talk all the time, but if I'm talking, I have to contemplate what I'm saying so that it's uplifting. Otherwise, why? What do I need? I don't need to add to the disharmony of the world.
Awesome. So we have a question from Gianni. Let me put it up on the screen here. It says, Liam, I like the thought of mindfulness as being a process of not a switch. Also, your point of miracles happening everywhere around us that can be seen with an attitude of gratitude. So it's not a question, it's a statement, but that's wonderful. Thank you.
I like that too. Being a process and not a switch. That was one of the hardest things for me, because stick-to-itiveness was not something that I was really good at. I was good at it in a work environment, but not in a personal environment. So especially, the culture that we live in, we're rewarded for giving lots of energy to work. And oh yeah, good job. Oh, here's a couple of bucks, just keep the carrot firmly extended in front of your nose. But in your personal life, you don't have that same cohort supporting your growth. And that's where community comes in. That's where the power of community, the power of friends. Gurdjieff said, what is it? Company is stronger than will.
That's true.
So if I'm in a company that drags me down, it doesn't matter how strong my willpower is, I'm going to get dragged down. If I'm in a group of people that support me, and I don't mean blow smoke up my skirt, I mean actually have the same intentions for self-development, spiritual growth, then those people will carry me when I go through the ups and downs, in the same way that I carry them when they go through the ups and downs. It's not plain sailing. That's not life. Life hurts. Yeah.
What would you say, Liam's been the biggest impact in your life since you started this journey of mindfulness, what was back in the 2000 time frame? When did you start this journey?
2008 was when I started seriously. Well, when I started again, the biggest impact, I'd say, you only see progress in hindsight. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So you can be doing stuff every day and not necessarily see the benefits of it. Your friends might see it before you do. So I'd say the biggest impact for me has been, there comes a point in time where you give up fighting with yourself and fighting with the world, and you recognize that there's a bigger scheme going on, there's a bigger plan in motion, and I can't do it by myself, and I need help. And I turn to, so I talk a lot about spirituality. I talk about a higher power. I talk about God. I talk about consciousness, energy. There's a higher power within us that we can access when we're not in fear. And so for me, the biggest impact was the drive to move from fear to being supported by this internal source of power that, when I'm in connection with it, fills me with, Christ said, a peace beyond understanding. Actually, Christ said, the kingdom of heaven is within you. That takes on a different meaning, because I always, I was taught it's up there in the clouds somewhere, and you're going to go there if you're a good boy, and do everything you're supposed to do. But he actually said it's within you.
Yeah.
And I believe that that's where yoga comes from, because yoga talks about us being part of a consciousness, an energetic consciousness, an unmanifest energy that we're always a part of, that's manifest internally and through us. So we're co-creators with God. But Christ said that too. We would do
greater work.
Yeah. So I think that probably the blending of Christianity with yogic philosophy and understanding and teaching, and the movement from an intellectual solution to a heart-based solution, and not oh, I love you heart, but an energetic attunement where my thinking and my feeling and my doing are all in alignment. You talk about that, right? Thinking, feeling, and being. When we're in alignment, then we're kind of in the zone, right? We're moving effortlessly.
Awesome. Can you do one more question, and we'll start to wrap up, because I know you want to, you have a time crunch. This is from Kim, which is Bassett. There you go. She says, I've been struggling with my productivity and have been doing a lot of manifestation, meditation, and hypnosis, and I can't seem to get my superpower, super productive mode. Any suggestions?
I've been struggling with and I've been doing a lot of manifestation, meditation, and hypnosis. I think one of the dilemmas that we set ourselves is expectation. And you've heard it talked about that expectation is setting ourselves up for disappointment. I expect something from the world. I expect something from you. And if you don't do what I want, then you failed, I failed, I'm not happy. So one of the things I remember asking Gurdjieff, well, if I'm going to be in the present moment all the time, how do I plan? And he says, well, what you do is you just say, okay, for the next hour, I'm going to plan. And I sit down and I write out all the plans that I want. I'm relaxed. I align myself and I write, and I just write. I'm going to do this. I want to do that, and this timeline and all the rest of it. And then when they're done, after that period of time, I surrender them. And I trust that they're going to show up. I just don't know what they're going to look like when they show up. Because my expectation of the way something can show up is based on this size, this amount of knowledge in the world, in the universe. And the universe's potential of delivering what I need is ginormous.
Yeah.
And so to limit the way things that show up to my confines is hurting me. So if I enter the day with a to-do list and I've prioritized it, A's and B's and C's, and I want to get this and this and this, I'm still doing, but I'm surrendering the outcome as to what the outcome is going to look like. And at the end of the day, I'm filled with gratitude for what showed up rather than judgment. And I reevaluate what I didn't accomplish that I still want to accomplish, and I move it to the next day. So examining the motivation behind why I'm doing something is critical. It's because I have to be able to do it in a peaceful mode so that I produce peace. If I'm doing it stressed, I'm going to produce a stressed result.
That's awesome.
That's important, right?
Yeah. Right.
Stressed, when I'm doing it, I'm going to produce a stressed result.
Very good. A lot of things you touched on that I think we should come back and do at some point, from the heart, the journey from the head to the heart. It sounds so easy. I know they told me up at the ashram to do that. I'm like, how do you do that? It wasn't like it's intuitive that I know how to move from my head to a heart. And that's taken me years, and I'm not even totally there yet. I'm working on that. So even doing versus being, which is something people don't think about or feel, And I think we should come back at some point and talk about that in depth. But let me ask you this. My company, my brand is called Authentic Elevation. And, you know, the thing is, I put this together because a lot of names were taken when I was looking to create it, but I had keywords that I wanted to, in my own life, to lead myself. So I used artificial intelligence to actually come up with that name, which is unique today because it's hard to find a URL that's proper. They're all taken. But it did represent to me, authenticity is something that I felt growing up I had, but maybe I didn't, because I was still hiding and still kowtowing to other people and pleasing people. And elevation was moving from these low-level frequencies of depression, fear, suicide as a kid into a higher level, which is still work for me. Maybe it's not work, but in my head, it's that. Maybe it's probably very simple once I get my head out of the way. But my question to you would be, how would you define authenticity?
For me, I think that would be understanding, knowing, and accepting, as you said earlier, the shadow side of myself. If I don't know and recognize the parts of myself that I don't like, then I'm going to be always in denial and avoidance and hiding in the shadows. So to me, the part of self-examination, the reason we do self-examination is so that we can see what it is that hurts us, not so that we can get rid of it, because it's part of us. We were hurt. It's part, and it'll always will be a part of us, but so that we can embrace it and become whole. So I know what triggers fear. So if I know this triggers fear in me and I feel myself getting triggered, authenticity allows me to still love that part of myself, but not be driven by it. Not be driven by my fears, but not to condemn myself because I have the fears. And then that will dictate the way I talk and interact. Authenticity then moves into I'm thinking and speaking and doing in alignment. That's perfection. It's not all the time. It's moment by moment. It's minute by minute. It's, you know, sometimes I'm in it and sometimes I'm not. I'm on the beam, I'm off the beam. So, but it's just allowing myself to be human. Somebody said to me the other day, the spirituality of imperfection. We're imperfect.
Yeah.
That's our humanity.
Which is maybe that's what's perfect, is the perfection.
Yeah.
It's like the diamond with the flaw is a beautiful diamond, because otherwise it's boring, because the flaw is so different than every other flaw that it's unique.
Right. That's what makes us unique, is our own individual wounds and our own individual fears and traumas and life experience. That's what makes us unique. But there's nothing wrong with what's happened to us. There may have been things that shouldn't have happened, or we'd prefer not to have happened, but that's reality for us.
And if you had one thing to tell everybody today, one big takeaway for them, what would you share with them that would help them through their day to make their day much more powerful, more mindful, more in presence?
You know, one of the things that we talk about a lot in Yoga Nidra is you can't do it wrong. You can't do life wrong. And if you can just remember, every time you think of breathing, to take a minute and breathe consciously, it will change your day.
That's good. That's good. So if they want to find you, I think you've given me this. I'm going to put it up on the screen. So if you want to follow Liam, or what would you say about your YouTube channel? What's there?
Well, I have just like half a dozen meditation videos from 5-10 minutes to 30 minutes. And the longer you do, the better, but start with whatever you're comfortable with. They're really easy to do. You just lie down and listen. On my Facebook page, there's just a way of getting in touch with me and staying in contact.
Wonderful. And Liam does great yoga nidras. He has a great voice. The Irish accent, maybe, if you like that. Calming. I mean, he sent me the first yoga nidra. I didn't even know what yoga nidra was because I was ready to do some asana and movement.
Right.
First thing he said is lay down and close your eyes. I'm like, I don't get it. But it totally changed my life. So if you've been through any of my yoga nidras, definitely check out Liam's. He has a great voice and a great process, and he's done a lot of those up at the ashram as well. So those.
Thank you, Vince. I appreciate that.
You bet. You bet. Well, I want to thank you again for joining us, Liam. I hope everybody got a lot of great value out of this. Again, if you did get great value, please do like it, love it, share it. If somebody needs to see it, obviously, Liam shared some things that can impact people's life for a long time. It has for me. And I'll have him back, and we'll maybe talk about some things about heart and mind and being versus doing and some fun things. So thanks again, Liam, for joining us.
Thank you, Vince, and have a brilliant rest of your day.
Thank you, and we'll do it again.
All right, bye.
Okay, cheers. Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks so much for showing up. Bye-bye.